Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's live stream, where I'll be giving a little bit of a transfer update and talking all things Ousmane Dembele. But first things first, guys, make sure you smash a like on this video and please do click that subscribe button. We're on the road to 300 subscribers by the end of this month. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please click that subscribe button. It really helps us out. But let's get down to business now, George. January 20th, 11 days left of the window. Not a sign of any player coming through the doors at Chelsea that isn't our own. All we've done is recall Kennedy so far. We've had, obviously, the unsuccessful attempts of getting Emerson back, and everything else seems to have gone a little bit quiet on the wing-back front. But it's emerging today that Ousmane Dembele, the France and Barcelona forward, 24 years of age, has been told by Barcelona that if he's not going to sign a new contract, then he must leave the club. And they fully anticipate him to be sold before January 31st. This is the Barcelona director today. It's clear that Dembele does not want to continue with Barcelona. He doesn't want to be part of our project. We told Dembele he has to leave immediately. We expect Ousmane to be sold before January 31st. So that's quite something coming from the club itself. On a separate note, it's Thomas Tuchel has obviously worked with the winger before in their time at Dortmund. Dembele was one of the most exciting young prospects in world football when he burst onto the scene at Rennes. He got the move to Borussia Dortmund, like all kind of young up-and-coming stars seem to go to Dortmund to kind of further develop their career. Had a couple of 2 to 3 good seasons there. One very good season under Thomas Tuchel. Gets his big money move to Barcelona, well over £100 million, puts him in the top 5, I believe, most expensive footballers of all time. But one thing that is in doubt is his injury record and his attitude as well, which is perhaps a slight concern in terms of constantly late for training and other things like that. I mean, this is a guy that, despite all his undoubted talent and high ceiling in terms of potential, has only played 49 games of football in the last 4.5 seasons. That's not great. I mean, it's reported that a deal could be done for 15 million euros in this January window. Obviously, our problems in attack are well documented. George, before I bring you in, I just want to bring this tweet up on the screen, which is a great tweet that I found, just highlighting the contrasting fortunes from our attackers at their previous clubs to what they're doing now. I mean, just having a look at these numbers here. I mean, Ziyech at Ajax, 165 games, 49 goals, 81 assists. Lukaku at Inter, 95 games, 87 goals, 29 assists. 150 games for Havertz with 46 goals and 31 assists. And then 95 goals and 40 assists in 159 games for Timo Werner at Leipzig. And yet at Chelsea, these guys are absolutely nowhere near these numbers. I mean, before we get on to your thoughts on Dembele, what are your thoughts when you see those stats there and that these guys don't even look like scoring or assisting for us at the moment?
Yeah, well, good afternoon. I mean, look, the issue up front in the final third has been an issue not just under Thomas Tuchel. It's been surfacing since Frank Lampard took the job, when we had the transfer embargo, and obviously losing one of the best players that we've had in Eden Hazard. It was difficult to replace the impact that he had. The likes of Willian also that left the club as well. Doesn't make great reading. I think we've touched on this before in the sense that I think some of those are quite false readings in the sense that you look at the leagues of where they've played. I mean, the Dutch league, no disrespect, but you've theoretically got 2, maybe 3 okay teams in that league. Similar with Germany, you've got Munich and then the rest who are on a level par. And in those leagues, it's just a bit more expansive. That the forwards get more space. It's a bit more end to end. It's not as physical. It's not as demanding fixture wise. So, but we've seen it before.
But that is, I totally get that point. And the Premier League being different and perhaps more difficult than those leagues is definitely a contributing reason. But that cannot be the sole reason that these guys are getting absolutely nowhere near those numbers. They're not even posting numbers of any recognition at all. So it's obviously a lot more than just the league they're playing in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do, and I think there's definitely an issue with the shape at the moment. I don't think Tuchel knows whether he's going 3 at the back, 4 at the back, and again, it's been so well documented that we're missing our two most influential players in a system that provide the service in the box in Chilwell and James. We know that. We've also documented on the channel, haven't we, about lacking a creative midfielder to link the thirds, the transitional play to make it a bit quicker, make that killer pass and that transition. So there's loads of factors, mate. But fundamentally, it's a huge drop in numbers, both in, if you're not going to score goals, try and provide something, more deliveries into the box, taking on players 1v1, having goes outside the box. And none of those players, I mean, it's so disappointing that it's not just one, it's all of them have dropped significantly in levels in terms of goals and assists.
Yeah, I mean, just before I get your thoughts on Ousmane Dembele, I found an interesting thing on recruitment between kind of Liverpool, Manchester City, and obviously Chelsea. And it's a fair point. I think that if Chelsea are going to compete on a front for the league, then the model of sacking managers perhaps needs to change. So this here just highlighting that Fernandinho joined Manchester City a year after Azpilicueta moved to Chelsea. But apart from the Brazilian and Raheem Sterling, every single first-team player was signed by Pep. So one manager, one vision, one set of rules. And it's the same with Liverpool. Henderson signed from Sunderland the year before Aspie, but only him and Origi were squad members not to be signed by Jurgen Klopp. So do you think that if Chelsea are going to, why part of the reason why we're struggling to integrate as a squad and perhaps as an attacking unit is that we're changing managers, on average every, year, 18 months to 2 years? We're getting a combination of, 3 or 4 different managers worth of players with different ideas, players brought in to play a certain system with that manager at the time, and then he gets moved on and we're suddenly not playing that system again. So do you think that actually if we are going to close the gap domestically, we need to perhaps slightly change our model on hiring and firing managers? Because, as I said, we're ending up with a mismatch of a squad that is being signed by multiple different managers.
Well, I think the Liverpool one's interesting because I don't think they were up to scratch before Klopp came in. They had a lot of deadwood in that squad that simply wasn't up to the task of going that step up. So I think you could almost read that story and interpret it how you like. I mean, Man City, they'd won the title before Pep came in, so that's slightly different. I think I do get that's a fantastic tweet, by the way. I get that, and I get that project of, everyone's on the same goal. They've all had one manager where they know the focus, they know what they're expected. The difference is, I think Chelsea have been a winning machine more so than those two teams in the last decade. So we haven't had to do what an Arsenal or a Tottenham needs to do, which is completely revamp the whole team and start again. We've never had to do that. We've had quality all over the pitch throughout Roman Abramovich's tenure. So I'm not too concerned about that because I agree with the manager policy. And that, again, I hate to say it on the channel because people just think I'm going on and on. But Frank Lampard was for me, why I really did lose faith in Chelsea as a football club, as an operation, because I really did feel that we need to give someone at least over that 3-year gap that we've never bridged so far. Just give it the time. You can't have it both ways. You can't have this trophy winning machine that has to win every single season but then not give someone an opportunity past 3 years in a management job when it goes wrong, because it is going to go wrong at some point. It's going wrong for Tuchel right now. Does that mean we sack him? For me, no.
No, absolutely not.
But Chelsea have been doing it since Roman Abramovich has come in. So it is a problem. It is a problem.
I mean, moving on to this window now, we're not going to talk about wing backs because nothing's happening at the moment. But I'm seeing things that, the fan base is kind of split on this Ousmane Dembele deal, if we should go ahead with it or not. I mean, obviously the injury record is a concern for a lot of people. But then on the flip side, there's people saying that it's relatively risk-free in terms of it's a free transfer. He's 24 years of age. He's got a very high ceiling. And there's obvious resale value. So we'd be able to make a profit on him if it didn't work out. And who's to say he would be any worse than what we've currently got? Which I think is a fair point of looking at it. But there's also the point that actually everyone Chelsea fan, I haven't seen a more united fan base behind Thomas Tuchel really than any Chelsea manager. And if Tuchel, who is a known admirer of the players, worked with him at Dortmund, says he wants him, then I trust that judgment, and should we not just be getting behind him and supporting him and just getting this guy in? Because if he says he wants him, let's get him in. I mean, what are your thoughts on Ousmane Dembele? Do you know much about him? Do you think it's the right kind of signing we need to go for? It's perhaps more of an out-and-out winger than kind of these inside forwards we're playing. But what are your thoughts on it?
My initial thoughts were proceed with caution. For me, he's not the player that we need. I think it's another luxury player to add to a mix of players at the top end of the pitch that just adds more complications. I get that there's a bit of a panic at the moment because none of the like we've displayed on the show, that none of our forwards are scoring goals or assisting goals or creating any sort of magic. But I think we've come to the crux of it, that it's not necessarily the front line that's the issue. It's what's behind it and offering the service. And for me, I think it's a bit of a panic buy. Now, if Thomas Tuchel wants him in, by all means, I think we should back him. And if he publicly comes out and says that he wants him, I think so. But for me, if we're looking at anyone at all in this window, it should be a wing-back. That's the area that we lack depth. We don't lack depth in the area that we're looking at with Ousmane Dembele. I know I get the risk-free argument, I get the resale value, but for me, I just think the part of being a great coach and a great manager is just try and get the best out of the players. And you've seen the price tags that those players have come in for. He should be getting more out of them. And I think long term, I can't see Ousmane Dembele being a class signing for Chelsea. And we've had it before with likes of, he reminds me of someone like a Pato or a Quaresma that's come in January.
He's a little bit better. He's better than that, but
yeah, he's better. But January transfers, do they tend to work?
But again, he's definitely not lived up to his reputation at Barcelona. It's been disappointing. He's shown glimpses, like a lot of our forwards have shown glimpses, but on a consistent basis, he's, as I wrote off at the top of the show, he's hardly played any football in the last sort of 4.5 seasons. He's always injured. And the last thing I suppose we want is another injury-prone forward that's just going to be spending most of his time on the sidelines in the physio room. We've already got one of those in Christian Pulisic. We don't need another one. So, I mean, but on the flip side, it's one that I'm intrigued about. It does sort of excite me a little bit because he's someone that's a little bit different. He's got that sort of X factor about him. He's more of those, what I describe as perhaps like an actual out-and-out winger, someone that hugs the touchline, someone that we haven't really had for a number of years. We seem to be going away from out-and-out wingers and just playing, I suppose, inside forwards. But, I mean, George, if Thomas Tuchel, by all accounts, according to reports that I've read, Thomas Tuchel and Marina had a meeting and Tuchel did say that, he wants Dembele. Now, if you're Chelsea, it's clear that Barcelona want to try and sell him by the end of this window. They're in financial difficulties. They'll want any money they can take for him to help balance their books. They're not going to get anywhere near what they paid for him. They're going to make a big loss on him. But, any money in their accounts is a bonus. As Chelsea, we know the board aren't the most proactive. If Thomas Tuchel wants this player, do you just get to the front of the queue now, offer the money and get this deal done? Or do you run the risk of going to a bit of an auction in the summer as a free agent?
Well, I think if Thomas Tuchel wants him, I think we have to do it. I personally don't think he's the right signing, but if Thomas Tuchel's had that meeting and wants Dembele for the reasons that you've also mentioned on the flip side with the numbers and adding someone who's a bit more of a touchline winger and fresh blood in the group and someone who might be a bit more creative and needs the football, might not have played as much football, but is probably desperate to play. I mean, I don't know his so much as a character. I don't know what, other teammates have said about him. There was a very funny story about Song that recently developed, didn't they, about he just went to Barcelona for the money. I wonder if he's one of those because he hasn't played a lot. So I don't know whether he's just, I can't, I honestly don't know. But bottom line, I think if Thomas Tuchel wants him, we should back the manager, and the manager should be backed because he's proven that he's a good enough manager to win things if he's given the backing. So just do it.
Yeah, I really think at the moment there's no excuses not to back the manager. I know we've recorded always get this wrong. It's either 165 million or 195 million pound losses. I understand that, we have recorded a big loss and we have spent a lot of money. There's a great article on Football London by Adam Newson about how, Chelsea could be the only club that could spend 300 million on their front line in the last 2 years and actually get worse. It's just about how, our kind of expected goals per 90, etc., is going down, and how the fit doesn't seem to work. And it's a great article. I won't bore you all with reading it out now, but as I say, hit up Football London and check it out, because it is very interesting to see kind of how the profile of forward players is changing over the years at Chelsea. But yeah, it is ironic that 300 million quid and we're in a worse position than we were before our transfer ban. But such is life at Chelsea. Never a dull day. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel that if Ousmane Dembele did come in January, surely that again massively that overpopulates that forward pool again. Ideally, you'd want to sign him and then with a view to him arriving in the summer, and that way we know some of the front line are going to leave in the summer. But if he comes now, it just massively overpopulates that front end of the pitch, doesn't it? Do we need another body in there now? I'm not sure we do.
Well, this is my case. This is my case against signing Ousmane Dembele now, because I feel, as much as we love the January transfer window and its previous, it's become almost a side spectacle, and did create some of the biggest transfers, not just in our history but in football. And if you actually look at the history of it, do they tend to work out very well? No, for the reasons that you're asking someone to make.
Cahill and Anelka, probably our best two.
Yeah, but then Torres was a big one in January.
Torres was a flop, a bit of a flop, yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of the actual transfer, huge.
Oh, massive fees, yeah, huge.
And you get the classic, yellow tie on by Jim White, and it's a brilliant side story. But if you actually look at the football and the performances of those players who come in January, very rarely do they make a serious impact straight away.
Yeah.
And especially someone like Dembele, who hasn't played a lot of football, I think it just causes more complications. So for me, again, I think we just need to persist with what we've got and try and find a system that works without Chilwell and James currently in the setup, in the starting lineup, to find a way. And that's got to be a test for Thomas Tuchel. Good managers need to be able to solve these problems, and we can't sit here and we're in a very luxury position. We've got these high quality players. We're not a Brighton who are producing results despite not really having any forward. So I think, yeah, for me, I'm against it. I am against the signing. But again, if Thomas Tuchel has publicly come out and said he wants him, then I'll back him.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately kind of the general consensus of the Chelsea fans, that we're behind the manager. If Tuchel says he wants him, then we have to trust his judgment. He's worked with the player before. There's definitely potential there. But again, there's the worries of the injury record. There's, again, the worries of another not finished article. Someone, again, coming with a high ceiling and potential to be one of the best. But, a lot of those have arrived at Chelsea in the last couple of years, and it hasn't really happened. So it would be a gamble, but I can't lie, it does excite me.
Would you take him over possible Eden Hazard in the summer if he was to return, perhaps?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, mate. This Hazard thing, we need to move on. Unfortunately, Hazard, since he's gone to Madrid, has just been washed, mate. He's finished. As sad as it is, we need to be looking forward. And someone that's 31, 32 years of age, that hasn't played good football since he left Chelsea, to come into this front line, yeah, it's a great story. But if we actually step back from it, take the emotion out of it, that isn't the answer at all. Let's be. That's my opinion. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, it's a lovely story, isn't it? We love it. We love the nostalgia about it. Didier Drogba came back. Well, what I would say is that maybe he is generally just missing being at Chelsea, and that he could revamp his form if he was just given that platform again. Because there's no doubting his talent. I agree, though. I think it is a step back going towards these legends who are slightly older. Again, he might lift the group and produce moments, but I think we've seen the best of Eden Hazard now. But then if you're asking me over Dembele, I'm still on the Eden Hazard side of the fence in terms of quality, in terms of know-how. I would rather spend a tiny, like 10 million more and get Eden Hazard in than
It's,
that again.
it's
But
yeah, it's
personal
very
opinion.
short. It's very short term. I just think we need to be moving forward. But I understand that
Yeah.
a lot of Chelsea fans, are attracted to bringing Hazard back. I don't think it's going to happen. He's obviously not. Things aren't working out at Real Madrid. He's not playing. I'm sure everyone's seen the photo of when they won the Super Cup and he's kind of just standing there at the back looking like he doesn't want to be there at all. And it is sad to see. He's been such a great football player, but at the moment it just isn't happening for him. But Hazard or Dembele, for me, as much as I love Eden Hazard, if it was a choice between the two, I'd go for Dembele because it's just something different. It's exciting. He's young. He's got high ceiling of potential, and we need to move forward. And it's as simple as that for me. As nice as it would be to see Eden in that blue shirt again, it's just it just for me just doesn't make sense really at all. And Madrid would want to recoup at least 20 or 30 million pounds and spend that kind of money on someone that hasn't played good football for over 3 years now. It represents a bit of a gamble that I feel is not really worth taking. But I mean, just a quick update on the wing-back situation, George. Again, 11 days of the window left, sorry. And there seems to be no significant update on that whatsoever. The one slight piece of news, Nicolas Tagliafico, the Ajax fullback, Ajax have said he's available for £7 million. And Chelsea have held an interest in the past in him. So that, again, is a deal that if we want him, that would seemingly be fairly straightforward to complete. I mean, I won't ask too much on Tagliafico, but just in general, George, are you concerned that the days ticking away, that things have gone a little bit quiet on this wing-back front, and every day that goes by is becoming a distinct possibility that someone is not coming in?
Yeah, and I'm convinced that Chelsea are trying to do something behind closed doors to get a wing back in at some point, and they've probably got a shortlist, but easier said than done. And there's probably only a narrow few options. I know, obviously, we've dried out the Emerson one, where it doesn't look like we're going to get him back. Still think there's maybe circulation in the Dest move, but
that's gone a bit quiet though.
Well, his agents, I think, convinced that he's not going to move, but I think Chelsea haven't really put in a formal bit of interest. So until we do so, I think you can't really get those wheels into motion. But I'd be very, very shocked if Chelsea went through the whole window without even a story coming out publicly to say that they've put in a bid or they've gone for someone on loan. Whether that's rejected, that's fine, because at least then Chelsea have shown that they've done it. But I'd be very surprised if we went through the whole window and nothing surfaced of Chelsea trying to, advance talks with someone in that wing-back area, because everyone knows. And if we know and it's public, then Thomas Tuchel knows, Chelsea know. So, yeah.
Are you concerned that, let's say, for example, we get to February 1st, no one's come in? Are you worried for the remainder of our season that it could be detrimental to us achieving the goals that we could still achieve in terms of trophies?
Not as much as maybe a lot of other fans are, because again, it's very raw at the moment because we're in a bad patch of form. But it's very easy for that to turn around with just a couple of big wins. If we win the Club World Cup and the League Cup final, then all of a sudden, the motivation's up, the confidence is high, got 2 trophies in the bag, and we go for a big finish. And Chelsea, historically are quite good at the back end of a season, finishing strong. So I haven't got too many concerns. I know, the Tottenham win wasn't ideal for us the other night. And there are teams catching us, United now seeming to try and push as well. But I think we've got enough still. We just need to turn it around.
On a personal note, would you be, as a fan, if no one came in, would you be a bit pissed off by that?
Pissed off is a bit strong. I'd say frustrated.
Frustrated. Yeah.
But only if it's a wing back. I think if we were to get Dembele, I wouldn't be like, well, that's great business, because that's not addressing the problem. I don't think. I think the problem is wing back, not forward line. Personally.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, lastly on this before we wrap up, obviously, one thing that's frustrating me is that the club have known about this Ben Chilwell situation since November. It was like they took a bit of a gamble by delaying the surgery. They knew that there was a high chance from those initial scans that he wasn't going to play football again for Chelsea for a long time. So why in November was a list not drawn up and, targets identified, initiating contacts with agents, players, etc., and someone not through the door in the first week of January? For me, I don't know what goes on there, and they may well have done. They might not have been able to get the people that they've identified on the list, but it seems to me that there's just no plan. There was no plan in place for this Chilwell thing, and now we're scrambling in the final parts of the window, and it just doesn't look good on the club.
No, and I've never understood it as a fan why it takes so long, or why it's so difficult to just have an idea of who you want and ask that manager in good time, create a shortlist and start doing the groundwork way before the window even opens. I don't know why we get this whole, you get loads of transfers done within the last couple of days. And it's like, you've had the whole window to do this, get them settled in for the whole summer of pre-season and things like that. And I don't know why it takes so long. I mean, from some of just the documentaries I've watched as a fan, a lot of the club owners of other clubs have said that people don't understand the complexities with transfers. They just think you ring someone up. I get that. But at the same time, like, come on, we all knew the issues, so let's get a move on. Why it's taken now 11 days to sort it out, and we're still, now public knowledge, usually if there's no news, that means that there's no news from Chelsea, because, with social media and everything so good now that
a lot of
stories get exposed.
Well.
So it seems as if Chelsea haven't really made any real pursuit for any particular individual. May have have a short list or called a few numbers, but really nothing surfaced. So it is concerning, but I think bottom line, we still have enough quality within the squad to turn this around. I think it's more of a psychological thing than an actual talent wise thing that we've got at the club. So I'm remaining more positive now. I've reflected on it the last couple of days.
Let's bring this one in. Months prep and no one's come in. I've just touched on that. No, how long do they need? It's just we touched on it. It's frustrating, Obviously, we don't know the ins and outs, the complexities at board level. It's not as simple as picking up the phone to Barcelona. I will give you 20 mil for Dest.
Used to be.
Used to be, and be like deal or no deal, phone down. I know it doesn't work like that, but it seems from the outside looking in that there's just been a distinct lack of preparation from the club as to how to deal with this situation. And that, as a fans, is really frustrating, because we've got a great manager, someone that can be here for years and bring us success. But it's got to be frustrating from a Thomas Tuchel perspective as well, that if he's highlighting players to the board, then each day that goes by, the problems on the pitch are clear, yet no one's coming in. You can see how managers fall out with boards, can't you?
Yeah, and I mean, Frank Lampard was adamant that he was picking the signings, not Roman Abramovich. But I do think Chelsea have a different framework to, say, Manchester City. Again, you look at the documentary and you know that they have a short list of players that Pep will give to the club and say, these are the players I want, and they'll go for those players. They won't go for anyone else. And they'll wait. They're prepared, and both those clubs are prepared to wait as well. They won't panic buy or go for something who's a B grade type player. Like the Laporte situation. He wanted Laporte. Liverpool wanted Van Dijk. They waited, and Chelsea don't do that. Chelsea seem to go with, right, who's our best? Who can we get? Oh, we can't get them. Let's panic. Let's go for someone else because we need someone in. And unfortunately, that hasn't worked well for us, particularly when it comes to strikers. We're a bit of a graveyard for strikers. We know that.
Yeah.
But sometimes patience is a virtue, and I just think that, again, do we need to panic and go for Dembele? Perhaps not. I just think it's a panic because of the form that we're in. Is he really that good? I don't know. Is he Chelsea quality? Perhaps. But the wing-back situation is about cover, so it's slightly more difficult because you're asking someone to come in who's essentially going to be shafted once Chilwell's back in. That's the complexity, I think, that's holding this up.
Well, I think I understand it's difficult to get a first-choice player in a January window, 100%. But I struggle to see how it's difficult to get cover in at Chelsea Football Club with how we're doing at the moment. Even to come in on an initial 6-month loan with an option to buy or something like that, how that can be so difficult to sort out. But
Emerson's just the natural choice to me. I just don't understand.
We can't get him. There's no recall option, and Leon are well within their rights to say no.
Yeah, so it's ridiculous. That's the ridiculous one for me. He's our player. he's a good player in terms of a squad player.
Yeah.
Are just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it is ridiculous. But I mean, to round out the stream then, mate, I'm going to ask you one question. Come February 1st, will Chelsea have bought anyone through the door?
Yes.
Yes.
Who that is,
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm not asking you to say who.
Yes.
I don't feel confident, but I'm just going to say yes as well. I mean, it'll probably end up being someone fairly average. Exactly. In the last couple of days of the window, but I'm keeping faith with the board. I just hope they back the manager, but we'll have to see. But yeah, I mean, it's not promising at the moment with 11 days left. There seems to be no major updates at all. A lot of things seem to have gone off the boil, but the window can burst to life in seconds. So we retain hope. But yeah, it's not been a great January window for Chelsea so far. Results on the pitch have been poor. No inroads being made to a situation that needs to be addressed we've known about for months. But never a dull day in the life of a Chelsea fan. So that seems like a good place to round out. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in live if you watch live. Again, if you're watching or you watch back and you're not subscribed, please do smash a like on this video and please click that subscribe button. Road to 300 subscribers by the end of this month. So every little helps. We appreciate all of your support. And we will catch you in the Spurs preview tomorrow afternoon. So see you then, guys. Cheers.